Well, first of all, I'm feeling inspired. After listening to you, I am feeling very inspired. That was a remarkable statement of commitment to justice, which we need more of in the world today. And so I thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really happy to be here, and my old friend, well, I shouldn't say old, Abe, my long-standing friend, Abe Foxman, who of course ran this organization with such agility and brilliance and passion. And of course you have inherited this remarkable platform for justice in the world. And I think your clarion call to root out anti-Semitism is a call to all of us, because the scourge of anti-Semitism is not just the problem of Jews. It's a problem for all of us who care about justice in the world. Mm-hmm. So how am I feeling? Well, I think it's fair to say that there has been a period of feeling a little disoriented and coming to grips with things that are difficult to come to grips with about our society. I think for me, we have to understand the context of what is happening in America. And the larger context is the growing inequality in our society. The sense that there are in this country people who are privileged and advantaged, and there are people who are disadvantaged, and that the bounties of America are inuring to the benefit of those of us who are privileged, and disadvantage is being compounded. And that reality is a reality that far too many Americans are experiencing. And we need to come to grips with that reality, because that reality makes it possible for narratives which really help to contribute to inequality about Americans. Narratives that say that Black men are pathologically more inclined to commit crimes, and therefore we shouldn't be surprised that most of our prisons are populated by men of color. That women simply aren't geared to do certain jobs and therefore shouldn't be paid certain wages. That Jews own the media and therefore there's some cabal to control. These narratives have greater currency in a society that is coming apart because of inequality. These narratives to people who feel vulnerable, to people who feel excluded, are more compelling. It's hard to talk to people. I had a driver in Los Angeles this year who talked to me about just how disaffected he is as a white man in his 50s who's been laid off from 2 jobs and who was looking for reasons. And over the day that I spent with him, he said a number of things that were very offensive. I think he felt because I was open to talking to him that I was prepared to hear his authentic concerns. But they were, in many ways, he was looking for someone in some community, something to blame for his predicament. And so it isn't an excuse, but it does speak to the interrelationships of larger phenomenon that give rise to anti-Semitism, to racism, to xenophobia. I just think we have to recognize that.
Talk to us a little bit, I mean, as Jews in this country, when we talk about suffering from stereotypes, I'll be honest, you know, the progenitor of the Ford Foundation, Henry Ford himself, was a bit of a problematic character as relates to the Jewish community.
Well, I think
I don't think I'm breaking any news when I say that.
That is not a secret.
Right.
And I think it is, you know.
So
look,
what is it like as a,
I mean,
as
Jonathan, a black gay man is the president of a foundation founded by Henry Ford. Now, I say that to say, this is why I love my country, and I deeply believe that whatever challenge lies before us,
yeah.
we can solve it.
Yeah.
A country that allows a poor kid from a little town in Texas to have the opportunity that I have and the enormous privilege that I have is one of the reasons I am simply hopeful. Right. What I worry about in our society is what is the threat? Because we are told that the threat to our democracy is terrorism or a pandemic or climate change. I think the greatest threat to our democracy is hopelessness. Because hopelessness tears a society apart. Hopelessness drives people to do irrational things that don't make sense and that confound logic. And so when I look at the narrative of the Ford Foundation, it is certainly confounding on some level that I would be president, but it actually makes a lot of sense, I think. And I think part of our history at Ford is being comfortable with who we are in that history. I think it's one of the challenges in this country is that we create narratives about our histories that don't give room and space for the dualities of that narrative to actually be talked about. And so I put Henry Ford in a context of a society where anti-Semitism was rampant.
Absolutely.
Well-meaning liberal people routinely acted with anti-Semitic behavior.
Yeah.
Eugenics was the Roosevelts, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, everyone supported the idea of eugenics. This was not some marginal movement. But Henry Ford holds a special place.
He does for us.
And so just to be clear, I am clear that he holds a special place. And I will say that his family, and particularly his grandson, Edsel Ford's son, Henry Ford II, who was deeply engaged in Jewish affairs. And in many ways, I know, because I've been told this by friends of his, like Al Taubman and people who knew him well, that it profoundly impacted him, his grandfather's anti-Semitism, and it was something that he was very ashamed of. And the family, I think, today has really taken on the mantle of philanthropy and the mantle of pluralism. And within the family, there is much intermarriage of religion and race, and all different sorts of people are represented in the Ford family. So I think we evolve over time.
Help us make sense of what is intersectionality, and more importantly, where do we as Jews fit into it?
Right. So,
because I would say the civil rights struggle, the Jews marching with the African Americans in the South, that sounds to me like intersectionality.
Right. No, that is intersectionality.
So what's happened?
I think that intersectionality remains.
Right.
I think.
Here.
I think what happens is that there are forces that seek to divide, and the power of the Jewish community and the African American community is a potent force. And there are forces that would seek to divide our communities. And I think part of what you are seeing, and those forces come from all sorts of places, and not just in the United States. And I think what we have to do is to is to fortify ourselves for that and to deal with that head on, that we won't allow our communities to be divided.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So what do you see as some of those opportunities for continued cooperation? Or maybe areas that need additional investment from this kind of collaborative dynamic?
Some of the things that you and I talk about that ADL is interested in, you're interested in, you have a record of working on, I think it is very important that on issues like the need for criminal justice reform, or ending mass incarceration, which recognizes that the war on drugs has really been a failure, and that the war on drugs, as John Ehrlichman eloquently and clearly stated, was a racist response to the Nixon administration's view that African Americans and hippies were two of their enemies, and that the creation of this war on drugs, which was concretized and extended by every successor administration, has been so harmful. And to hear other people, not just African Americans and Latinos who have been disproportionately, but to hear the voices of organizations like ADL, as you are doing, standing with the organizations who are the traditional civil rights organizations, and the new organizations who are out there fighting mass incarceration, is hugely important. So what we need is your voice on these issues. And our voice needs to be amplified on the issue of anti-Semitism. And we have to, in our community, we should be, our ministers from the pulpit should be preaching about the scourge of anti-Semitism and its connection to racism in a society, and how that is not, these are not separate issues.
Right.
They are a scourge across all of our communities, and they affect all of our communities.
Right.
The same people who are anti-Semites are often racist
Absolutely.
too. And so you can't simply say, we're focused on racism and not understand the power of anti-Semitism too.
Yeah, I entirely agree. One of the things that's interesting as we talk about this, and I think about sitting up here with you, we are the CEOs, respectively, of two of the maybe most important legacy institutions in these United States of the last 100 years. And
You are, not me.
I think both, Ford and ADL. And as we look ahead, we're moving into this moment where young people are deinstitutional, right? Where centralized is giving away to very decentralized. As a CEO of a legacy institution, how do you think about your role in this very brave new world?
Look, no matter what we hear about the way millennials like to organize themselves and communicate and mobilize, institutions matter. And we know that today more than ever, because a democracy needs durable, resilient institutions that exist over generations, because many of those battles are generational battles. And so to simply say, well, our organizations should just go away and be replaced by some crowdsourced platform, is not sufficient,
Right.
or to be created, morph into, some digital platform,
Right.
and that could do the work of our. You have to have the capacity to mobilize, and not just mobilize by clicking, mobilizing by getting people passionately concerned and deeply engaged on the issues, not sitting on your computer and clicking and signing up and doing what a lot of people do and calling it engagement.
I couldn't agree more. And so I think this is one of the challenges for us, which is how do we mobilize in a fulsome sort of terrestrial way to combat these very concrete, tactical challenges.
We have to use our platforms, as you are doing with ADL. I mean, one of the things about ADL that I've always admired is it's a remarkable platform.
Yeah.
And the capacity of the institution to be a force is a function of how much and how well the leadership leverages that platform. Abe did an extraordinary job of just understanding, first, the power of the idea that we have to address anti-Semitism, and then the ability to mobilize and passionately, intelligently, thoughtfully speak truth to power. Our democracy desperately needs the institutions that are independent and speak truth to power. And in a society where there is growing inequality, there are fewer institutions willing to step up and speak truth. Because the risk for speaking truth in a society where inequality is rampant is that you will be silenced. Because those with power will seek to silence you. Democracy and the American democracy needs ADL today more than ever.
Look, I am excited and I am like giddy to explore how we can build together, how we can make an impact on the ground in the African American and Jewish communities and make sure those bonds remain as durable and as resilient as they need to be. I think all of you know why Darren is, I could talk here all day with him. He is so special, he is so visionary, and we are so lucky to have him. Darren Walker.